Hey Vibe team, thanks for clicking on this video. I just wanted to take some time and go through some things that might help you guys as we're leading our small groups. So as a lot of you know, as we're rearranging the day and all that, we're trying to condense the small group time on Sundays to the last half an hour of our time together. And that can present some challenges, and it also gives us some advantages. You know, the advantage is that it's an uninterrupted chunk of time. It gives you a lot more time to develop ideas and to have conversations and all that. And it can also present some challenges because it's a long time. And we're dealing with first graders and, you know, people that can get pretty antsy. And I thought it would be really helpful if I kind of went through some principles that I've picked up over the years. You know, I've led groups of kids this age for 10 or 12 years, and you know, I've picked up some things here and there that I just wanted to share and coach you guys and encourage you a lot. You know, as you know, if you can see the way that our large group lessons are going, is that we're trying to not so much try to teach everybody from the front of the room. We're just kind of reviewing our key points, the major ideas, introducing some concepts. But what's really going to have to happen is the real teaching, the real application, and the real truth driving home is going to have to happen during the small group time in the curtains. And what that means is that you guys are pastors. You're the ones really dropping these bombs of truth in the minds of these kids. I know that I love war analogies, but that's silly. So I wanted to introduce some big points here. So there's some things that I found helpful. The top one, the first one, is that to know the material yourself before you actually try to talk about it. I've always said that it's hard to expect anyone to follow me if I'm not actually going anywhere. And the best teaching that I do is in the context of my own growth. And I'm taking a lot of time, and during the week here, we're tinkering with our curriculum, and we're really trying to prepare you guys ahead of time. You know, I shoot the videos, you know, on this YouTube channel all the time. We try to send out the emails. I've been tweaking the leader study guides, and also the materials that we hand out on Sundays. They all kind of step in line with the theme of the week. And honestly, I actually learn a lot myself from studying scripture to prepare to tell you what to talk about. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. Process this stuff for yourself. Go through the passage of scripture for yourself. Ask yourself the big picture questions of, you know, what does this passage mean about Jesus? What does this teach me about God? What does this mean for me? What is the application here? If you take some time beforehand to go through that process for yourself, you'll find it's a lot easier to lead others through that process too. And it's also, frankly, crucial for our growth to be just constantly wrestling with scripture in that way. And I just encourage you to do that. You'll find that you'll be such a more effective leader if you're actively seeking truth yourself. So take time, watch the YouTube videos, read the sermon, read the lessons that we send out ahead of time. Really go through that stuff, because like I said before, you're their pastors. And the better you understand it, the better you'll be able to communicate it. All right, second point, use the ticket system. I know that these kids can be hard to manage sometimes, but what we're trying to do with this raffle ticket system is create some excitement around you know, the drawing and the prize and the toys. I'm trying to put cool things in there that they're going to want, and all that is an effort to give you a tool to try to manage the energy in the group a lot. And like I've said, you know, the tickets cost, you know, a couple of bucks for, you know, 1,000 of them or whatever. Give them out like candy for anything positive that you see, anything like that. And that's such an effective way to even get the kids that might be resistant to wow, there's something that I want here. And that's anything from like, hey, good job sitting still, thanks, you know, what a good answer, here's one, thank you for your input here. All kinds of stuff like that is good. But that also brings up the question, like, what happens when the positive reinforcement doesn't work, and maybe they're kind of being brats anyway. I brings me to my third point, really, and that sometimes we have to be willing to remove somebody from our groups. And I know that sounds harsh, it sounds tough, but remember, the whole frame of what we're doing in Vibe is that we're trying to disciple these kids. We're trying to bring them into a closer relationship with Christ by leading them through Scripture, by asking them questions and participating. And frankly, if a kid is just disengaged and they're not being cooperative, and they don't seem to be changing at all, the positive reinforcement isn't working, gentle correction like, hey, focus, come on, stay with me. If that's not working, we're not effectively discipling that kid. And a lot of times, that can also affect the discipleship of the other kids in the group. And it's not a matter of like, oh, we don't like this kid or we don't like that kid. It's a matter of discipleship is king in Vibe. And if this person is not allowing that to happen, well, we have to just take them and put them over here. And that, if that might mean like a couple of minutes, go hang out there, go sit at that table. I'll be around, Leslie's around, our other, leaders around. I would be more than happy to sit there and go through the same information with them one-on-one. Some kids need that. Some kids have a hard time in groups. Some kids, every kid is different. And if sending the kid out is good for your group and it puts them in a one-on-one situation, with me, I'd be happy to go through the lesson for the week with them. And I think that's a good strategy to do. Also, I've found that doing that sooner is better, because it sends a message to the rest of the kids in the group too. And they see that one go and they're like, oh, okay, they actually mean business here. And it's important that when you do stuff like that, you set it up right and say, guys, I want you to learn. I love you all. This is so important. The truth here is huge. Like, you guys need to understand this. And, if you can't do that here, I'll have you do it over there. I love you guys, and I can love you while you're over there. I can love you while you're in here, but we want you to know Christ. And that's what's important. That's why we're doing this. That's always got to be at the theme of anything like that. We don't just punish kids because we don't like them. We're sending them out for their own good, for our own good, and honestly for the kingdom. All right, the fourth point. You got to ask the right questions. And, obviously we know more about the Bible than the kids do. We've been around longer. We've sat through more sermons. We have bigger brains and more life experience. Okay. And a tendency for us to want to do is just to sit down and tell them all of these things that they need to know, and tell them how to live and how to think and how to do and all that. But frankly, a lot of times that doesn't work on kids. The most success that I've found is following this philosophy, is that I want to ask you thought-provoking questions in a way that will lead you down the path of realization for yourself. And so that at the end of that path, you will come to the same conclusion that I would have told you way back in the beginning. And what that does is, when somebody comes to realize something for themselves, they really own it for themselves. The truth that they're learning, it might be the same thing, but a lesson learned on your own, I found a lot of times is a lot more meaningful. That's how I run my grown-up MC, and that's a lot of times how our sermon series go. Is they're very thought-provoking. They want you to think about things rather than just dumping the truth on you. And what I'm trying to do is like I said, when I'm doing a lot of work to go back through and retool the leader guides that we hand out on Sundays, and each of those now, during the large or the small group section, they're going to have several questions, and it'll actually say question, with what I think would be questions that'll hopefully lead your conversation down to, these big picture, the big truth. What does this mean about Jesus? What does this mean for me? I hope it will go there. Doesn't mean it will. If you've got another idea, if you got different avenues you want to take, you know your kids better than I do. You're with them every week. So, but at least check that portion out, because it will give you some idea of what kinds of questions to ask, maybe how to get to the truth. And also, as you ask the questions, I try to do little coaching areas, little suggested answers and stuff to dig deeper. Because kids will notoriously give you, the comedian's answer, or they'll give you, just a shallow answer. Like, this week we're talking about temptation. Well, what things are you tempted with? Food. Well, then you ask, okay, what does that look like? What does that look like? That's the best question. If you remember anything, remember that question. What does that look like for you? What does that look like? How do you see that in you? And you just kind of dig on them a little more till you get to some nuggets of truth. And then you just go from there. But again, as I said, really look at the small group guide, because I'm trying to lay that out as simply as possible, so that you guys can really get down to the deep nuggets of what we're looking at. All right, tip number 5, make some allowance for chaos in your group, but be authoritative to get right back down to business. And this is the most maddening thing, and this is what scares a lot of people away from kids ministry, is that when you're inside those curtains for half an hour, you have to assume that you're going to probably spend 20 minutes of that just managing chaos. And you have to be patient with it. You have to allow it to happen. Every couple of minutes, the kids are going to want to boil off and do goofy things and make jokes, and they all think they're the funniest kid in the room. Someone made a funny noise, so they're going to laugh at that. And you got to just kind of step back for a couple of beats, let that go down, but then authoritatively step in and say, okay, back to this. And that's a balance, because you're going to be fighting frustration and you're fighting temptation, and part of you is just going to want to say, all right, this isn't working, forget it, let's just go throw the little basketballs around. But don't do that. Stick with it. Give them time to boil off, bring them back in. Honestly, sometimes, I've had groups like that where I've spent a half an hour with them, and I think maybe I got about 2 or 3 minutes worth of truth. But that truth that we got to in those 2 or 3 minutes changes those kids. It changes who they are, changes the way they think. And so, in the midst of the chaos, you're looking for those windows where you can get truth in there. Boom, in and out. They got it. Now I back off. I can let the chaos go, because we got this point, and they listened for that, just that beat. But again, patience is the key for that. Number 6, we're almost there. A couple more minutes. Play with your kids. I'm incorporating games into each Sunday during Vibe. A lot of you already saw this. You did great. You're standing in the lines. You're encouraging the kids. You're telling them to cheer for each other. Some of you jumped in and you're doing the relay race and all that. A couple of you jumped in on the tug of war. I told you to get off, but we'll have leader tug of wars too. And all that is just kids build relationships, especially boys. But kids build relationships in the context of play, in games. That's in the midst of doing battle for boys is a big deal. So take advantage of that time. Build those relationships, because you'll find that the better relationship that you have with the kids on that end actually earns you a lot more credibility with them when you're trying to talk about gospel stuff. So jump in there, go all out, have fun with the games, play them too. Last thing, we got to pray. Each Sunday, we need to wake up. We need to look in our mind's eye at the kids that we're going to be ministering to. We need to pray for them. These kids are under attack. The devil would love nothing more than to take whatever little faith they have, to rip it away from them and wear it around his neck like a trophy. And it's our position, it's our job. We're sitting here to confront that and to fight against that. And our biggest weapon in that is the Spirit of Christ, because frankly, if we think that we are going to change these kids, we're on the wrong track. It's only the power that comes through faith in the cross and the gospel that's going to change who these kids are. Our job is just to be the deliverers of the message, the managers of the chaos, the players of the games, the readers of the word, and the teachings of the truth. But God is the one who makes the little seed grow. The parable, we just plant the seeds. we're planting seeds, and God makes it grow. And the best thing that we can do for our kids is to support that growth prayerfully. So there you go. That's my helpful tips for today. I want you guys to comment below if you have any other ideas, if you have any other tips, any